Both critically acclaimed games that push their respective genres further. Both games on my top 3 list, and both had a sequel with a new twist. That's right, Persona 5 and Breath of the Wild, with their respective sequels being Persona 5 Strikers and Age of Calamity. Get your head out of the gutter. In this video, I will be dissecting 5 categories from both games, discussing how they compare and coming up with a winner for each, as well as an overall winner at the end. Of course, this is all my opinion and you are free to disagree. The categories are gameplay, story, glitches, exploits, and other miscellaneous, music, and graphics, in this order. There will be spoilers for Age of Calamity and first boss spoilers for Persona 5 Strikers. Now to jump right into our first topic, the story. Both Persona 5 and Breath of the Wild were games with no need for sequels, but money. In Age of Calamity, you play as Link and the other champions fighting to stop Astor, a new villain, from reviving Calamity Ganon with the help of Teriko, a small robot who traveled back in time to warn the princess about the Calamity, in a sort of prequel to Breath of the Wild. It's a decent setup, with the best part by far being that we finally get to see the champions interact with each other as well as with Link, who actually has a personality this time, instead of just being a wall.
It seems I'm the only one with a mind of my own. I, the person in question, am fine, regardless of the king's orders. Return to the castle and tell that to my father, please.
This was one of Breath of the Wild's biggest flaws, and it's nice to see it diminished by the sequel, or rather prequel. There are plenty of great cutscenes showing their connections, and we finally get to see what it was really like 100 years before Breath of the Wild. Unfortunately, that's about where my praise ends. The story repeatedly pulls the impact out of important moments. Take when Link first pulls out the Master Sword. We see him desperately trying to hold his ground and protect the princess, but gets beat by the Dark Champions and is knocked back near the Master Sword. We see him reach for the princess, the tension rises, and I wait to see him pull the Master Sword and skillfully cut his enemies down. But nope, it just glows, and that defeats them. This isn't the only time this happens either. The story consistently robs emotion out from the story, like when King Rohan bravely sacrifices himself in the purest act of love for his daughter and kingdom. But nope, he lives because of ancient Sheikah technology. Oh, the champions are gonna die? Well, can't have that happening. Teriko sacrifices himself to save the kingdom and banish Ganon? We can fix him. There are so many loose ends and plot holes that I don't want to spend too much longer talking about, so I'll go through the rest quickly. Why is Astor the most generic villain ever? And where is he during the original timeline? While I understand the Yiga clan turning against Astor, why does the Yiga clan betray Calamity Ganon, a being they practically revere as a god? And where does best boy Suga go? Why can Zelda's father be a woodcutter when he was only a ghost disguise in Breath of the Wild? How does Zelda take so long to recognize Link as the hero? I mean, just look at the common guard. And time travel just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Oh, and what is History's voice actor?
But there are scary, mean monsters in the woods, and I can't get past them.
Persona 5 Strikers starts off 6 months after the original Persona 5 game. Joker has just returned to his friends in Shibuya when they run into a jail. Similar to palaces, those being cognitive places where people with distorted desires reign supreme, except the rulers of these jails, called monarchs, steal the desires of ordinary people and make them obsess over said person, all done through a new app, Emma. The first monarch, a pop star named Alice, gets the people she's stolen desires from to buy all her merchandise and break up with their partners, because why not? After defeating her, with the help of an AI calling herself
Sophia, humanity's companion.
Joker and the rest of the Phantom Thieves travel across the country, discovering the true secret behind jails and the reality of their society along the way. The characters remain great, and the voice acting is on par with the previous game, furthered by witty dialogue.
What's up? Ready to buy some camping shit?
Okay, maybe not always witty, but Sophia is a great addition to the dynamic cast of the Phantom Thieves. My only complaint about her is that she plays into the robot trope a bit hard, not understanding common expressions, even asking what ramen is, despite having full access to the internet. They also give you the illusion of dialogue choices, but your choices change nothing in the story, and will sometimes even have the same answer, regardless of your choice. Confidence are gone, but you will still have the chance to choose who you hang out with, just less often. Sometimes the characters are geniuses and have massive leaps in logic to figure out something, and other times they take forever to realize the simplest thing as the player waits for them to catch up. As in, I've known this obviously evil guy is a monarch for the past hour, but the characters still aren't sure and want to investigate some more. It's also formulaic. The thieves will think that someone is irredeemably evil. Turns out that the villain went through something traumatic, and then they'll be sympathetic to them. Yeah, I mean, Alice might have corrupted thousands of people to throw their life savings at her, ending thousands of couples, and hurt her former manager so badly he had a mental breakdown, as well as stepping on her current one in public. But, I mean, she got bullied as a kid, so she's not really to blame. And this theme continues all the way to the final boss. The story also relies on contrivances and coincidences a bit too much for my liking. One villain admits to lying about his tragic backstory at his party full of his fans, and by some stroke of luck, the Phantom Thieves are the only one who hear him talking. And this isn't the only time that the villain publicly speaks about their evil plans. Too lazy to come up with ways for the protagonist to learn about the villain's plan, the writers just have the Phantom Thieves happen to be around the right corner when the villain spews out their master plan. Overall, creating a plot that relies too hard on contrivances and drags on a bit too long at the end, held together by its great characters and emotional moments.
You're missing the point, dude.
Now, the winner for this round is Persona 5 Strikers. Yeah, this one wasn't very close. Age of Calamity only retells a known story with some added elements, while Strikers comes up with an entirely new concept that ties in much better with the combat. Strikers sweeps the floor with Age of Calamity in terms of dialogue and characters, with a crew that have the perfect chemistry, both for comedic moments
Lost again?
At least a few million.
Send it back.
Sorry? I didn't get that.
Send the effing thing back!
as well as more serious moments.
You got no right saying that shit to Sophie! You hear me? You high and mighty garbage ass, judgy piece of shit can't even show your own face! So shut the fuck up, idiot!
Age of Calamity just didn't have the same effort behind its story, the same sparks of passion that made Strikers such an interesting plot. And while it may have its drawbacks, altogether Persona 5 Strikers brings its story together with a climax to rival its precursors. Age of Calamity has some damn good music. They somehow managed to take the much slower, calm, and graceful music of Breath of the Wild, made for large, peaceful, and much more gentle moments, and remixed them into upbeat bangers. Take Mipha's theme for example, which was by all means a great song in its own right, immediately letting you know what kind of character she was, as it evokes feelings of love, passion, and family. So how do you improve on this veritable masterpiece? Well, like this. They remixed the known songs into phenomenal new beats, fitting the high pace of an Action Warriors game. One after another, Age of Calamity continues to throw new songs and remixes that even change depending on whether you're engaged with an enemy camp, and they continue with this trend all the way to the final boss. It's truly amazing what the dev team has done with this soundtrack, and I can only pray that we get more of this music in the near future. Age of Calamity has climbed to and past the bar, far exceeding my expectations. But Persona 5 Strikers isn't falling behind. Known for their phenomenal music, the latest game does not bring disappointment to the franchise. Bot after bot, the music plays from anything from upbeat to mellow, nailing it all. I mean, this game even has amazing menu music. How did they get away with this? This game further cements the Persona soundtrack as one of the best video game OSTs ever created. Seriously, if you've never listened to Persona music, you are missing out. And the winner for this round is Age of Calamity, and I was not expecting this coming in. Both games have amazing soundtracks, but while Strikers stays with what it's familiar with, even reusing many tracks from Persona 5, Age of Calamity takes its music in an entirely new direction, innovating on the previous game's style and blowing away my expectations while pushing Zelda music to all new heights, remixing in ways I've never heard before. What the dev team has done here is nothing short of a miracle, and they deserve all the credit they get and then some. The dividing feature between the two gameplay-wise is the maps. In Age of Calamity, you play many smaller battles, on maps with 1, maybe 2 floors. You will separate your playable characters and have them immediately run to different objectives, ignoring most smaller enemies on your way. In Strikers, you and your team of 4 always stay together, and explore a massive map, restoring limited resources like SP, used for stronger attacks each time you hit a checkpoint. I played Age of Calamity on hard mode and Strikers on normal difficulty, yet still found it to be the harder game, as they handle difficulty very differently. In Strikers, you die when your health bar hits 0. You have a limited resource called SP that your character can use for extra powerful attacks that target enemy weaknesses, and you are encouraged to use your limited supply wisely, only when you can hit an enemy weakness or when you're running low on health. There are rarely any exceptions, so if you're good enough, you never really need to grind. But Age of Calamity has timed battles, so no matter how good you are, you will reach fights that are completely impossible to beat at lower levels, which doesn't make sense to me on a design level. And boy, does it suck playing a 10-minute mission and losing to time. I mean, if players are good enough, why not let them push themselves? This made it so Age of Calamity required me to grind much more, even if I was having an easier time with it overall. And the grind in this game is not great. You see, in Strikers, different combos do different things, inflict different status elements, and affect different affinities, while in Age of Calamity, all the combos boil down to deal damage. So you end up finding the optimal combo for each character, then repeating it hundreds of times. For Link, it was YYYX stasis, YYYX YX. I must have performed this combo hundreds of times, with no reason to try something new. Not only with combos, but you are also given no reason to play around with new characters either. After all, why would you switch to a character you aren't as good with? Especially since characters level up separately, so it's easier to only have 3 or 4 high-level characters. With an impressive 18 playable units, I only ever got really good with 2 of them, while in Strikers you will constantly be switching characters, whether that be to match affinities, refill on SP, or to get the bonus charge on your super you get from switching. Because of this, I can say I'm very comfortable with all 9 characters in the game, compared to Age of Calamity where I can play 2 characters well. Forcing you to play certain characters for certain missions does subdue the problem, but not enough. as I would simply use my good characters to raise the required character's level up, then button mash through the level. These missions are made even more boring by a lack of an interactable environment. In Breath of the Wild, there were so many creative ways you could deal with your enemies, but the only option there is now are the explosive barrels. Even strikers played around with an interactable environment, even if they didn't execute it perfectly. Strikers' side missions are a bit different. They have you take requests, which serve as the mission's objective, and return to jails you have previously been at to accomplish them. They aren't anything special, ranging from defeating an enemy with a certain character to straight up fetch quests, but as the game requires much less grinding, it's less of a flaw. Another reason for Striker's increase of difficulty is that every unit is a threat. Here's how you deal with smaller units in Age of Calamity. And here's what happens if you take the same approach in Strikers. Enemies in Strikers also attack far more often, and have much less noticeable telegraphs, where Age of Calamity enemies will have flashing signs over their heads while they slowly wind up to make their attack. I wonder if I should use stasis here. And while we're talking about stasis, holy shit is it broken. With animation cancels, it's insane how much damage you can get in for free. Anyway, Striker's rise in attack frequency did cause a lack of flow in my combos, as I would frequently be interrupted before finishing the combo, but it also leads to a much more strategic game, with spamming becoming significantly less viable. In Strikers, your party members can take damage and die, often while still having SP left that they could have used to heal themselves, which seems off, but to make up for that weakness, allies are actually useful in combat, both healing allies and attacking enemy weaknesses, which I can't say the same for allies in Age of Calamity. The one downside of Persona's battle system using affinities and weaknesses is that if you fight a boss and, just by chance, none of your party members have its weakness, you might as well give up, as it's nigh impossible to win. Both games also have a bit of a problem with inflated boss health. Granted, I did go into many fights underleveled, but I mean, look how much damage this showtime does. Progression is where Age of Calamity flips the table on Strikers. While in Strikers, other than leveling up in equipment, there are only two ways you got stronger. One, the bond points which you obtain through story moments that can be used to upgrade abilities, such as how much damage you deal or how well you can unlock chests. The other is Master Arts, 4 abilities you unlock for each character as you play them, ranging from unlimited ammo to extra combos. Age of Calamity has a much longer and deeper progression route. Dots around the hub map show what items you need to unlock different upgrades, which you can obtain from side missions or redoing story missions, and there are a lot of them. Hearts, power bars, recipes, and dozens of combos can be acquired through this progression system. And while I had gotten all the Master Arts by the time I had finished Persona, these side missions kept me going even after defeating Ganon. Oh, and sometimes characters will talk during combat, and you won't be able to hear them over all the noise. And the winner is... This was another close one, and a few small adjustments could have changed my answer, but I'm giving the win to Persona 5 Strikers. Age of Calamity just had so much grinding, stemming from their time battles that just sucked. The combos are also way less unique, and while having far more characters, I never felt the need to play any of them. While Persona 5 Strikers had me constantly switching between characters, combos, and battles, leading to a much more unique experience. Persona 5 is known for its style, and Strikers only continues this trend. From special moves to artwork, even the menus of this game are a work of art, and this style complements the Warriors gameplay to a T, while maybe making the screen a bit busy. The Breath of the Wild art style that Age of Calamity adopts is also very nice looking, but doesn't work as well with the Warriors game. as its original beauty came from looking at vast landscapes, not from the enemy design. So it ends up looking like a messier version of its inspiration, with constant frame rate dips due to the amount of action on screen. Both games have camera angles that can occasionally get in the way, but are never too big of a problem. Persona 5 Strikers does do this thing during dialogue, where a character does an action and it'll just cut to black, and it really disconnects you from the story, but I mean it's not too big of a deal. And this category's winner is Persona 5 Strikers. Persona Strikers takes this category with ease. While I really love the Breath of the Wild art style in an open world game, it just doesn't work nearly as well in a Warriors game, and can't compare to Persona's insane style, where each menu option has a different animation. This last category is just small things that didn't really fit into the others, and will be a lot less structured, but here goes. During my entire 35-hour playthrough of Persona 5 Strikers, I ran into two glitches. One, where Joker starts to, shake. You can watch the clip yourself. And another where Haru became invisible, which happened during the third boss fight, and even lasted during a Showtime attack. If anyone knows why this happened, feel free to leave it in the comments. I ran into 0 glitches in my playthrough of Age of Calamity, which is pretty commendable. Granted, the only ones in Breath of the Wild were from the physics engine, which they took out of this game, but nevertheless, still quite the feat. So I guess Age of Calamity wins in the glitches category. And both games actually have similar cooking systems, so tied there. Anyway, so there are Koroks in Age of Calamity, just like in Breath of the Wild. Not as many, but still 134 of them. Yeah, I found one in my entire playthrough, out of 134. They weren't too well implemented, as this game is much more focused on constant action, so I was always looking towards my next fight, and not at the environment, as one would be while playing Breath of the Wild. In Strikers, if you want your SP back, you have to get to a checkpoint, return to reality, go back to the checkpoint you were just at, and the load times aren't very fast, so this takes a while. They should have just allowed you to do it at checkpoints. I also never really used the Velvet Room, which is a room where Joker can go to combine personas to create stronger ones, which was an integral part of the last game. Maybe that's why I found this game so hard. Anyway, Age of Calamity had these Divine Beast levels, where you move around fighting thousands of enemies in these massive mechs, and while it's pretty fun the first time you play it, it quickly grows boring due to a lack of tension and variety. And why are there so many stone taluses here? This is more than the entire overworld of Breath of the Wild. But with that out of the way, we can get to the conclusion and answer the question, which game, in my opinion, is totally objectively better? And the winner for the best game sequel that came out for a game that wasn't a Warriors game with no expected sequel is Persona 5 Strikers. I'll be straight up and say I was disappointed with Age of Calamity. With Nintendo themselves having a heavy role in the development of the game, I was expecting more, but what I got was a game with a boring yet long and required grind, as well as an uninspired story that was too cheap to have any somber moments, its sole redeeming feature being its music and characters. Persona 5 Strikers was the complete opposite. Expecting some small spin-off game, I received a full 35-hour game, with quality music, quality gameplay, and a quality story, with its sole flaw being that it dragged on a little at the end. Now I would still consider both games worth buying, especially if you enjoyed the story or characters of the precursors, and with Age of Calamity getting some DLC in June, it could fill in some plot holes that the original left. But as it is, Persona 5 Strikers is on top, and my experience with it was an absolute joy. If you haven't played Breath of the Wild or Persona 5 Royal, go play them, and then come back and play these two games. Thanks so much for watching. Side note, please let Suka be the DLC character. I mean, what even happens to him?